Well, good evening, good people. Hi, it's Jason with Green Country Agroforestry. It's Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. in the summertime, which of course means that it's time for yet another live stream. How's everybody doing out there tonight? See, Brian's out there. Hi, Brian. John's out there. Sorry, I had a little bit of fruit punch on my lips there. I've got the fruit punch from a beverage this evening, and the Nat seems to be interested in it. So tonight's video title is what is it? Updating or broadcasting live from the Dust Bowl, and I got a nice little picture of there in the background of what it looks like over most of the Southwest. Hmm. However, however, shortly after listing this particular live stream and saying we're going to talk about the drought and what's going on with that, it started to thunder outside, and we actually got a little bit of rain finally. So I'm feeling in a celebratory mood right now. I'm very, very happy. The temperature has plummeted. It has dropped all the way down to 86 degrees. We're here at 8:30 in the evening. It's 86 degrees. It was 90 degrees about half an hour ago. All the way down to 86 degrees. And we might even get more rain tomorrow. So finally here in northeastern Oklahoma, what is supposed to be green country, that's been just dodged by rain over and over and over again. We're finally getting some. So I'm very, very excited about that. And I do have the air conditioner running because even though it is 86 degrees, it's also very humid and it feels kind of, icky. So, hi, everybody. Hi. Oh, my arm disappeared. That's weird. Huh. Okay, so my green screen's being strange. Let's say hello to everybody real quick. We got Eric Hale in the house, Vicky Savage in the house. I saw Vicky in the chat. I think she was watching Billy Bonds over there at Perm Pastures Homestead because they were simulcasting the live stream with Jack Spirico earlier today. I was watching on the Jack Spirico side, so whenever she said something that Jack put up on the screen, we could all see what she said. You probably saw me over there on the other side. Ken Jennings is in the house. That was a good live stream. So if you guys know Jack Spirico or Permapastures Homestead, either one, go back and look at that live stream from earlier today. It was a good one. John says it's been drier has been drier in the Ohio Valley. It's interesting. I was looking at the big picture of where all the rainfall was coming in at, where the moisture was, and it looks like everywhere to the east of the Missouri River has been getting the rain, and then everywhere to the southwest of that, up until just now, has just been getting this. The moisture skips this wait until after it crosses the Missouri, and then it drops. Eric says we were blessed with rain for the past 2 days. 76 degrees. Wow. John, that's almost the temperature that King Stropharia mushroom will start fruiting at. It'll start fruiting around 68. So it gets a little bit cooler. You'll have mushroom flushes if you've got the mushroom spawn. Anyway, Gardner Josh says missed the rain. Are you up here in northeast Oklahoma also? A couple of days ago, it fell in Sand Springs and it missed us here. So it's probably splotchy, and we're not going to have even distribution. I think over the next week we'll probably get at least an inch or two. I was looking at windy.com, and having a look at what they're projecting for the next 3 days. And over the next 3 days in this area, they're projecting 2 inches, which would be very, very welcome. That'll get us a couple of weeks. John is saying green screen, brown grass. Yeah, brown grass. But since we actually got rain, I can't show that virtual background. I'm going to have to change it up. We actually got rain, so we're going to change up our background. Now we're going to have a little canna lily with a drop of water on it instead. I was out there early this morning, as I tend to do. Early in the morning, I'll get out there and I'll go out and the first things that I do is start swapping out the water for the ducks. I have 3 tubs that I put water in for the ducks. And I decided I'm going to go ahead and do this every day. instead of every other day because the water just gets too fouled up too fast. I decided to go ahead and take that water, empty it out into 5-gallon buckets, move it around to the places that need the fertilizer, and fertilize them. So I have just basically a fertilization schedule. They put everything on rotation. Once a week, the corn patch gets the duck water. It's about 10 gallons on a 4-foot wide by 25-foot long segment. So one 5-gallon bucket will fertilize about 50 square feet if you're looking for coverage for your raised beds or if you're doing in-ground beds, stuff like that. So 5 gallons of used duck water every week will fertilize 50 square feet. So went out there, set up those buckets, and I decided to put 10 gallons in each one of those 3 tubs. So I've got 30 gallons a day going out, and given the evaporation, the amount that gets drunk, and the amount that's just splashed out by the ducks, whenever it's all said and done, I'll have about 15 gallons a day that I can put out for fertilizer. But while I was out there doing that, I was also doing some other watering. I went up to the front yard. We've got a bunch of canna lilies growing out there, and of course a bird bath, which I try to keep topped off for a couple of reasons. One, of course, is the birds. The birds need someplace to come. I put feed out in the bird feeder again because the babies are out and they're looking for food. I want them to eat bugs, but most of the songbirds, cardinals, and stuff like that would rather have sunflower seeds and safflower seeds and stuff like that. So I put feed back out in the feeders, filled up the bird baths. But the other reason, of course, is the pollinators need a place to drink, and I'm growing some watercress in the bird bath. So I have to make sure that I constantly have that topped off to keep the watercress healthy. So whenever the birds come in, they land in the bird bath and they do their business in the bird bath because typically that's what they do. They drag in whatever dust or dirt or whatever they've got, they splash it around, and they wind up doing business in the bird baths. Something to pull that fertility back out and use it for something instead of letting it just grow mold or bacteria or algae. You wind up with this nasty red algae that'll grow in your bird bath if you've got birds doing their business in it. I put the watercress in there, and so the watercress soaks up the mess that the birds leave in the bird bath. So anyway, so you have to keep it topped off or the watercress will die. But while I was out there watering and filling things up, I saw a wasp that was out looking for a place to drink. And the bird bath had dried up overnight. There was a little bit left in it yesterday. I didn't top it off before I went to bed. So when I came out, it was already dried out. And there was a wasp out looking for something to drink. And he had gone down inside one of the canna lilies, inside the leaf that forms kind of like a funnel, right? He'd gone down inside that leaf and was looking for moisture trapped inside the leaf from the early morning dew. It'll come down there, and there'll be enough of it down there that collects with the dew that your pollinators can go into your cannas if you're dryland, if you're doing some dryland permaculture. Cannas with that little funnel shape of the leaf as it's coming up provides a moisture trap that your pollinators can get down into so they can get a drink. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right. Vicky says, went from 101 to 73 in 15 minutes just now. Wow. It's even better where you guys are at. It's 85 right now. So it's come down quite a bit. I'm very, very happy. I won't have to manually water the corn. Let's see. John's saying no, just death caps. The is that it's one of the amanitas, right? Not Amanita muscaria, but one of the other ones. Gardner Josh is saying he's north of Tulsa. Okay. There's some nice spots out there. They go up on 169 up past Owasso. There's some nice, really high ground up there. Lots of high pasture. Mary's giving us a corn report. Iowa is looking good. Corn silks look colorful. Let's see. Vicky confirms, yes, was watching a Permanent Pastures Farm. Jack is good that way. He'll post the comments. He multi-streams on several different platforms, and so sometimes you'll see comments that he'll put up on screen from whoever is watching from wherever else they happen to be at. I'm not quite that sophisticated yet. I think I simulcast on Rumble whenever I'm doing it. So right now, if you're on Rumble, you'll see us on Rumble. You should go over there and see how the channel is doing. Mary's saying the songbirds, babies are all grown up. Yes, they are. There's a whole bunch of them out there. We've seen chickadees, we've seen cardinals, we've seen painted buntings. Last year, I saw a lot of indigo bunnies, but no painted buntings. This year, we're seeing painted buntings, and painted bunnies are cool. They're a bird that has all of the primary colors. They've got red, yellow, blue. They have green. Sometimes they have a little bit of purple in them. They're a very colorful, tropical-looking bird whenever they're adults. And they actually migrate through this area. And if you put out things that they like, then they'll stop by and say hello, and you can see them. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to nest around here. Guilty as charged. I don't want to have to wash out the bird bath every day. Really, I prefer not to have to wash out the duck pond on a regular basis either. So whenever we get around to building that thing, we're going to do some stuff to make sure that I can flush the muck out of the bottom and then try to absorb the nitrates from the water the rest of the way. Ooh. That's kind of cool. Now, Mary has been going around the country. Mary's been going around the country trying to collect seeds from everything if she can recognize what it is. And she's picked up some echinacea seeds, some purple coneflower seeds, recently. Eric was asking if I got the new patch of corn planted. Yes, I did. Towards the end of that video, when I do that really low passover with the camera, I actually took the camera and put it down close to the ground. I just went by all those little tiny corn shoots as they came up. 5 days in, it took 5 days for them to germinate and pop up to the point where you could see them, and then just inverted the video so it looked like it was right side up. But yeah, we've got the new patch of corn planted. I had enough seed left over of the kind that I wanted to plant. I've got lots of corn, but I've been selecting certain corns, if you understand, from the seed that I had to try to grow specifically those genetics. And I had enough of those genetics to plant one full block. So we've got another shot at producing some good seed corn before the year's over. Right now they're about yay tall. What is that? About maybe 2.5 inches. See the corn report? Yes. Probably the next video I do, I'm going to get out there, and I'm going to get out there with. First, I'll start out with the garden hose and the spray nozzle, and I'll go out there and spray it and show you how the water acts when it hits the surface, and then do something with a Warren hoe, which is a type of hoe with a triangular head on it like that, which I can use to cut furrows. And I'll cut furrows in between the corn rows so that whenever it does get rain on or it does get water, that water will settle into those furrows. And that way we can keep more water on the surface instead of having it run off to the sides. Jan T is saying, will there be a corn shortage this year? Most likely, yes. Most likely, yes. Okay, so Iowa, Mary is reporting from what she's seeing up there in Iowa. Iowa's got its corn crop in. The silks are turning brown, which means the kernels did get pollinated. So whatever corn is growing in Iowa, at least, there's going to be a harvest there. But across Oklahoma, parts of Kansas, Texas, these areas like that, it's going to be rough to get a full harvest out. We're going to get some. I mean, I got some, but it wasn't great. It wasn't great. Um, Drops. Hey, you guys getting ready to head out to Arkansas? That's awesome. Arkansas is a great place to be, especially if you're like northwest in the northwest corner of the state. You're in the Ozarks. Awesome place. Hill country is nice. Gardner says nice. Gardner Justice is nice up here out west of Oologah Lake. Cool. Every time I drive by that area, I want to go off road and go looking for property for sale. Not that I can afford it. Just I think it would be nice to have land out there. John is asking if I have an Odyssey account. I do not as of yet, but maybe in the future I might. Mary is saying corn, not sure, should not be short unless China buys it all. No, there's that. So whoever bought the corn ahead of time is going to wind up getting it. And I was going to talk about this other factor when it comes to the Southwest and cattle, because Oklahoma is not the only place that's having a drought. The drought's even worse further south and further west on into New Mexico and Texas. They've got no grass. Grass is all dried up. The stock ponds are drying up to the point where there's very little water left in the stock ponds. The people who are raising longhorns have got a little bit better shot because the longhorns are better equipped, genetically speaking, to deal with drought. But the folks that are raising most of the commercial beef, are in bad shape. Many of them already bought their feed, they've bought their hay, but they were anticipating going into drought and supplementing come August, and they're already having to supplement. So unless they get more hay and more feed from outside, they're not going to have it. And that's in the vicinity of $100 plus per round bale. And at that rate, it becomes less profitable to raise beef. So over the past week or so, there's been haulers lined up 3 miles long, waiting to get into the processors to dump their cattle at whatever price they can dump it at. And you would think that if farmers are liquidating herds, if ranchers are liquidating herds, the farmer who raises beef cattle is a rancher, but if the ranchers are liquidating their herds, that means that maybe there's a chance that some of this is going to wind up coming out on the market. We're going to be able to go to the supermarket or wherever and buy beef at a cheaper price, which would be wonderful. I mean, considering how much beef has gotten up to over the past few months. But no, it's being sold on the international market. Whoever pays the most for it's going to wind up getting it, even if it's not here. And people all over the world want beef. So just because the herds are being liquidated right now because there just isn't food for them and there isn't water for them, even if there was food, doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to get cheaper prices. So if you do happen to see cheaper prices, jump on them. You don't know when you're going to see them again. And afterwards, the price is going to come up because once these herds have been liquidated, they're going to have to spend some time rebuilding the herds before they have a surplus of beef cattle available. Drop says, hottest week in Washington this week. We usually don't even think about Washington State as being a hot place, but yeah. Is that the all-time record for Washington? She doesn't even know what happened. I hope you took pictures or something. Otherwise, it was like, we've got a bunch of seeds. We don't know what we got. Mary, okay, she's talking about the coneflowers. That's purple coneflowers, the ones that you saw. You can say, as long as I get the corn and the critters don't. Yeah, we got maybe a quarter. No, I think I'm being generous. A quarter or less of our expected harvest from the first go around with corn, just mainly because the grasshoppers got in there and eating the silks, and we didn't get anything germinated. So, um, John says no whiskey shortage. Right. um, I had planned on getting the ducks out there into the corn patch earlier. That was the plan. It was like, okay, so to deal with the bugs, I'm going to get the ducks out there, and so the ducks can eat the bugs. That'll feed the ducks. That'll give them good protein. They're going to lay eggs for us, and we don't have to spend as much on duck feed because duck feed is not cheap. But contingent to that plan was the materials that I needed to build the mobile fence. And at first, I got the step-in fence posts, the ones with a little spike on the bottom. You just step on them and push it in. And I discovered really quickly that wasn't going to work. Our soil is too sandy and it's too loose, which ordinarily you go, wow, you've got nice loose sandy soil. It drains well. That's great. This is great to grow in. Yeah, but it's not so great for a step-in fence because there's nothing holding it up. It just gets knocked over really easy. So the plan was, okay, I'm going to build this fence using rebar that I can drive down, 4-foot rebar that I can drive down 1.5 feet deep to hold the fence in place, because that's enough of a grab on the ground to hold it. But I couldn't find the rebar. Supply chain issues being what they were, I couldn't find the rebar. And so I was about a month late getting that fence built. And that month was the month the grasshoppers moved in and started eating the silk. So, well, now all I've got to do is make sure that they don't eat the little seedling corn. And as soon as it's up high enough that I can get the ducks out there, that I know the ducks aren't going to eat the corn, then they'll be able to patrol the grasshoppers and everything should be fine. They like eating morning glories too. So I've got some morning glories that are popping up in the corn patch. And as long as I can keep them down up until the point where I can move the ducks out, the ducks are going to have fun going through there and doing a little bit of weeding for me. So the ducks are going to be weeding, they're going to be fertilizing, and they're going to be taking care of pest control for us. So we get eggs as a byproduct. No corn, no shine. Well, I do have lots of pears, and I can make pear cider. Actually, I'm more interested in having the pears for making alcohol and making vinegar for the purposes that I need alcohol and vinegar for. Yeah, exactly. Corn's not the only shine source. I mean, amen. There's other things that make sugars that are good for brewing. And like I said, pears. I'll eat maybe 2 or 3 pears a year. I mean, I like a nice fresh pear, but there's only like 1 or 2 days that those pears are perfect, and I'll eat a couple, and then the rest of them would be wasted unless I press them for cider. So hopefully, knocking on wood, we're going to be able to press some pears for cider this year. Eric saying, went a long stretch with no rain, but the corn is looking pretty good up there. It's good. The technique that we employed, where we dig the trenches and fill them up with wood chips, seemed to really help. I estimate probably 2 weeks for every cubic foot that you can set up that way. You have 2 weeks without watering, 2 weeks for 4 square feet. So if you've got 4 foot wide rows that you're planting in, your blocks of corn or whatever else, 4 foot wide, then you're going to have a 3 foot wide walkway, and then another 4 foot wide bed there. If you've got at least 1 cubic foot of space filled with wood chips on either side, whenever it's fully saturated, that'll get you 2 weeks of that garden bed, 2 weeks of water for it if you don't get rain. So whenever we get these a little bit further developed, when they're 3 foot wide and 2 foot deep, that'll be enough for, what is that, 6 cubic feet? That's 12 weeks. If we can get enough rain to charge them, to thoroughly charge them during that spring rainy period, then we'll have about 12 weeks worth that those blocks can go without getting rainfall, and they'll still be okay. That should be enough to get us through a summer of drought. If what they're saying is correct, because we have some people saying that these drought conditions, the dryness, the heat, so on and so forth, is going to keep on going for at least a few more years. I hope they're wrong, but in the back of my head, I think they might be right, just because of the way that longer drought cycle goes in the Great Plains area, anyway. Mary says there are people who trade food like stocks. We're talking about commodities, of course. So, yeah, your commodities broker will have already purchased and sold the futures of whatever crop is coming up. That's where the money came from to pay for the farmer to invest in creating that crop in the first place. So, yeah, sometimes they're already bought and sold long before the harvest ever happened. And whoever bought them is going to wind up getting them. Mary's saying flatbedders are busy. Hay in the summer, farm equipment in the winter. Yeah, moving hay is going to be a big business this year, because a lot of places in the Southwest are just going to have to buy in hay, or they're going to have to get rid of stock, or a little bit of both. And unfortunately, the hay that they're buying in is usually not the quality they're looking for. It's also expensive. Really, you've got a choice. If you're raising beef, you got a choice. You can dig deep and buy your inputs and try to preserve your herd all the way to the butcher weight that you're looking for, the final weight you're looking for. You can try that. If you do, you're going to have to get a higher price per head to break even or to make a profit, and that's a gamble. It's a big gamble, especially if you've got a lot of cattle. So, the upshot is you're going to have lots of liquidation of herds and future prices for beef over the next 2 or 3 years while they build the herds back up are going to be a lot higher. Carp's Homestead saying, hey, folks, that doesn't look like a carp. There's Sean. Just got in from the garden. Drops saying it's hot up there in Washington right now, not running the AC. It's hard to wrap my head around it being hot in Washington State, Oregon, etc. I know you guys have summer, but whew. Usually I'm just amazed at how well I guess it's the Humboldt current that goes up along the West Coast. Oh, my arm disappeared. How that current goes up along the West Coast keeps everything so warm during the winter, to the point where you can grow things up there, even though it's technically a much lower zone than we are here, but it survives winter, and here they won't survive. Things like the Chicago hardy fig doesn't make it in Oklahoma. So it's supposed to be a zone 5 plant, and here it'll die off, even though we're zone 7A. Well, yeah. Local farmers can care about the local community. The larger industrial, commercial farmers are looking for profit. They're not growing food; they're growing money, and they sell to the highest bidder. And that's usually not local. Unfortunately, that's the way it works. That's the game. Currently, that's the game. It'll be on Beef Buying Expo. It'll be interesting to see if we can get lower prices for beef. It really depends. It really depends. We've got a supermarket across the river from us that I like to go to, where they just charge 10% over cost. Whatever the cost was for the food they've got, they charge 10% at the checkout, and that's their profit. It's 10%. and they run a butcher shop there. And occasionally, they get really good deals whenever somebody brings in. Usually it's pigs, because we have some local pig farmers that sell to them. But even now, we can find deals like $2 a pound for pork tenderloin. It's not bad. We bought what was that, Barry? Just short of 10 pounds. No, it was a little bit more than $2 a pound. It's like $22.70, I think. 2.75 for pork tenderloin. So we bought a whole tenderloin, and I got home and was cooking dinner, and I went ahead and cut out a whole bunch of steaks out of that, little chops, not steaks, chops out of that, and I used the ends that were left to make our dinner last night. Mary was home. There's some good advice. Hey, never pass up the free food or the cheap food if you can get it. And yeah, sometimes loads wind up getting rejected for whatever reason, and you never know what you're going to wind up getting. So if you got a CB radio, listen for truckers having to get rid of stuff. I just got a turkey sandwich from heaven. Yeah, we still have some Lindt brand chocolate that Mary got a couple of years ago that I put back in one of the freezers. We had 5 or 6 boxes. Big boxes of, like, your convenience store would buy 1 or 2 of these boxes and put them up on the display, and sell these for $1 a piece. And there's like 20 or 30 units in each one of those. She got 5 boxes of those, and I put them back in the freezer. It was just stuff that got returned, case damage, I think it was, or something like that. But for whatever reason, whenever a load gets refused, the trucker's sitting here going like, what do I do with this? And a lot of times they'll take it, and if they can drop it at the food pantries, places like that, they'll drop it off there, or they may drop it off at the local truck stop, or what have you. But it's not like you can haul that stuff around with you. You've got to get rid of it somehow. And if the customer, the end client, does not take or accept the load, you got to do something with it. The people that were tuned into that live stream with Jack and Billy earlier today, they were talking about going to restaurants. Restaurants is one place, supermarkets is the other place you can go to get compostable materials, because the produce that they wind up having to throw away, the stuff that they have to throw away, takes up space in the dumpsters. They do have to pay to dispose of it in the dumpsters. It goes to the landfill. So if you can get it and you can compost it, and you have to convince them, hey, I'm going to take this stuff and compost it, often you can get a hold of some of that material. And you can do things along the way towards composting it, where you're feeding your pigs or your chickens. So waste not, want not. Casper says, I like to throw stuff out and see if it grows. I do a lot of that. I wind up killing a lot of plants, but sometimes I'll get stuff that comes up, and I go, okay, well, I guess we found one that'll actually grow here. Vicky's saying Washington State east of the Rockies has continental climate. Yeah, because you've got the Rocky Mountains, you've got your current moving up the coast, and then your rain comes in, it gets to the mountains, and then you have the rain shadow on the opposite side. So you have a greater chance of actually drought just on the east side of the Rocky Mountains because of the rain shadow effect. The water doesn't always manage to make it all the way across the mountain. Got Dow's Homestead in the house. Weeds, look them up. Worst weed is lady's thumb. Oh, I don't know that one. Now that I know how to use them, they're disappearing. Weeds are a resource most of the time. If you can figure out what they're for and what they're good for, then it no longer becomes, oh, shucks, I got weeds, darn it. It becomes, oh, wow, I've got something I can use. I've just got a resource that I can make use of. And it no longer becomes a curse, it becomes a blessing. Because the good Lord did not make anything bad, but we don't always know what everything is for. Drops are staying out in Washington. This is usually their hottest week. Yeah. All right, so you guys are okay. So Phoebe is getting her stuff done in North Carolina. It's coming home, then so like a week or two from now. Woohoo! Get in touch with Vicky. She's up in that area of the world. Paris cider is called Perry. Can I just call it Paris cider? There's a brand name of Paris cider called Perry's. GNT saying drought, wet, running 3 year cycle. It varies. It's usually somewhere between 18 and 20 years between cycles, and then the number of years that you get drought is variable at that point. Roughly, it's based upon the solar cycles, but exactly how, I'm not really sure. I just know that every 20 years or so you get drought, and about 1 in 4, 1 in 5 of those winds up being a big one. But well, that was what was going on back in the 1800s, late 1800s. Whenever folks were coming in from back east and they said, "Hey, wow, you can grow wheat out here on the Great Plains. Let's grow wheat." And they brought their brand new tractors that had just been invented, or were tearing up the prairie and planting wheat. And they, wow, this is great. This is great. And they're interested. Guys, this is a bad idea. I said, "What are you talking about? This is great. It's great for growing grass crops, for grain crops in." So, no, there's droughts coming. It won't be that bad. Oh yeah, Bill. But Mary is correct. Trees fixes everything. Well, they certainly do help. So the way trees help, and it's not just trees, but the way trees, canopy, understory, shrubs, vines coming up through everything, herbaceous perennials, and ground covers. The way all that helps. If you can have a a full forest ecosystem, the way it helps is one, you have roots in the ground holding the ground in place. So whenever you do have flash floods or you do have wind events, you do have dry weather, you don't wind up losing soil. First and foremost, you don't want to lose the soil to begin with. Second, all of those trees and shrubs and vines and perennials drop organic matter on a regular basis onto the soil surface as they go through their life cycle. Higher organic matter in the soil retains moisture so much better than anything else that you can imagine. So whenever we do get rain, if you've got enough organic matter, it'll soak up the water and hold it in the soil. That keeps your soil microbial life going. Soil microbial life, of course, is necessary to transfer the minerals and nutrients to the plants that are growing in the soil. If you don't have microbial life, then the plants suffer. They only have the range of the roots, and that's it. With microbial life contributing, the range of the roots is greatly extended. So the physical roots of the plant only go a certain extent, but the ability of the plant to harvest minerals from the soil is enhanced by the microbial life in the soil. If that makes any sense. Having roots in the ground, having organic matter, keeps the moisture there, keeps the bacteria and the fungi alive in the soil, increases the ability of plants to grow and be healthy. If plants can grow and be healthy, they're less susceptible to disease and to pests. Plants that are less susceptible to disease and pests manage to grow and stay there longer. Canopy trees, understory trees underneath that provide, wow, that's distracting, isn't it? The green screen. They provide the ability to keep moisture in the soil for a longer period of time. They shelter the soil from the sun so you don't lose as much through evaporation. Even whenever you do wind up with some evaporating, having that canopy also traps the moisture under the canopy so it can recondense and collect in the soil again. So having large amounts of things growing in the soil actually keeps more moisture in. Eventually, you can build your soil organic matter up to the point where your aquifer reaches the surface. In other words, you have water all the way from grassroots all the way down. If you have water from grassroots all the way down, it's very, very hard to kill off your ecosystem that way. That's the way you go about regreening deserts. First off, you have to trap the water, keep it on the soil, and keep it from evaporating. Build soil organic matter, build soil life, microbial life, and then start building up multiple layers of the forest. So, not just trees is fixing everything, but the entire ecosystem. Saying 2018, 2021 wet. Oh, I see what you're talking about. So like every 3 years you're getting really wet weather, and then you're getting dry weather, wet weather, dry weather. Well, it comes and goes, doesn't it? Okay, Vicky's asking about the ditches, the water for every garden technique. Would it work for 2 foot wide and 3 foot deep? Yeah, it would work for two. I don't think it would work too well for 4 foot, simply because at a certain point I guess it really depends upon what you're growing. If you're growing trees, then you can go 4 or 5 foot deep, right? If you're growing trees that have deep tap roots. If you're growing more shallow rooted things, blueberries, for example, or some of these tree species that put out a profuse amount of surface roots, 3 foot is about the best you're going to get. With pecans, yeah, I could probably go 6, 7 foot. And they'd be happy. But ultimately, what you need to do is have a way to trap and hold the moisture there on the soil. And if you can keep your moisture on the soil so that the microbes can reach it, then your chances of success increase exponentially. So yeah, 2 foot wide, 3 foot deep, or 3 foot wide, 2 foot deep, 3 foot wide, 3 foot deep. If all you've got is 6 inches of topsoil, and then you hit bedrock, dig down until you hit your bedrock, and build up your berms on either side. Fill that space in between with wood chips, and keep on building it up year after year as you go. And eventually, you're going to wind up with nice, good, thick, rich, deep soil that they can build over time. In Washington, no rain until August the 4th. Wow. Mary's throwing some trucker lingo at us. I have to pick up meat with nothing but a pickup number. It's called a blind bill. So you have no idea what you're getting until you get there. Sasspress says, after watching Edible Acres, another good channel, by the way, Sean, Edible Acres, he's up at Finger Lakes in New York. He's really fun to watch. Says we're growing an edible prairie savanna food forest. Yeah, savanna can have as little as 70% canopy, and I'd say go anywhere from 50 to 70% for canopy. If you have 50% canopy, you've got an awful lot of edge, and you can put a lot more understory stuff. You can fit maybe some more ground cover or grass in if you want to. Pardon me. If you want to silvopasture and raise things like sheep through that system, maybe do a little combination of riparian and silvopasturage, where you have 50% canopy, followed by large, long, wide segments of water where you can keep your fish going, and you can also have your sheep, or if you have goats, cattle if you have a lot of space, graze through that. You can run pigs through it, and then you can alley crop on one side, or do alternate alley crop graze, alley crop graze, alley crop graze. So whenever you're not grazing the land, you can grow a crop on it. It really depends upon how much space you have to work with, and how you want to do it. But there's lots of really great management systems that incorporate agroforestry. But edible prairie savanna food forest. It's next to riparian, about the most productive you can get. They're still raising fat cattle up in Washington. Yeah, I know somebody up in Oregon that's raising cattle. I haven't checked up on them in a while. Mary's saying edible prairie. Oh yeah, there's a lot of edible prairie. Oh shoot, I was planning on sharing this, but I might as well do this. There's some edible prairie plants. Let me get this up here. This is my list for herbaceous perennials, and some of these are really actually for prairie or for garden edge for sunlit edge areas. Um, See up here at the top, we have garden soil, Rumex acetosa from zone 3 to 7. There's other variants of sorrel, other members of this genus Rumex that you can get further south. Rumex is a pretty broad genus. It includes your docks, including your yellow dock. Garden soil is a little bit more edible than yellow dock. But, if all you've got is dock, be grateful you have it. It's a great accumulator. It's great for sending its taproot deep down into the ground to mine the subsoil for nutrients. And although it doesn't have a lot of calories, including some of that dock or garden soil as a powder early on in the spring, get yourself some bacon or some kind of fat, some kind of meat to cook it up with, maybe a root vegetable of some sort, and it'll fill you up right. For wet areas, Althea officinalis marshmallow will grow from 3 to 7. Of course, you've got rhubarb, which is a nice food forest plant to have if you're in a cooler climate. Uh, then we get into temperate forest areas. Amaranth is more of a sunlit edge or meadow type plant. You can grow it to a certain extent underneath canopy trees, not too close to the base of the canopy, but closer to the edge. And you can grow various types of amaranth. If you see this notation, SPP right here, that means various species. There are various subspecies of amaranthus. Some are better for grains. Some are better for sprouting for microgreens. Some are better for, say, an early spring green or powder. And if nothing else, you can grow it and let it go to seed and let the birds have it, and then you've got something to feed your wild birds with. American licorice, interesting one. That's almost a cooler climate because it only goes up to like 3 to 8. And I imagine zone 8, especially speaking, you'd need it perhaps on the north side of a structure or with some shade or shelter. I don't think it would do well in regular zone 8. Various agastache. In this particular case, it's anise hyssop that has a kind of a licorice flavor to it. There's another one you can grow. So anyway, this is our herbaceous perennial list. I don't think I've got. No, I didn't. Here's the Canna indica Indian shot that I was talking about earlier. One of the things that I need to put into the individual write-up for this plant is the ability that it has to serve as a water capture to give your pollinators a drink during dry months. And it's just something I didn't know about it until I was out there observing and seeing what was going on with this particular plant. Anyways, there's going to be a lot of edible prairie type plants too, ground covers. There's one that I discovered while I was doing research for this book that's called breadroot or Indian breadroot, and this is a nitrogen fixing plant. Produces an edible tuber. If you're growing it as a vegetable, you need to grow it as if it was a biennial, not an annual, but technically it is a perennial, so it'll keep on growing. It'll just root divide to the point that you want it to. So it'll fix nitrogen for you. It produces flowers that attract pollinators, that feed pollinators. Nice, striking, true blue flowers, which are kind of unusual in nature to find true blue for a color. And of course, an edible root. And it's native to the Great Plains. Pardon me. But it's not a plant that I'd ever seen in the wild before. until I read up about it and was like, how come I don't see this anywhere? And the reason is, of course, we came through and just destroyed the plains and the natural biome. It's supposed to be there, but it's not. But there's some out there that you can get your hands on and introduce, and it's good for, once again, sunlit garden edges, um, zones I think 5 through 9, and that's a prairie plant. Hmm. In upstate New York, we're in the prairie. Yeah, Illinois prairie. We got Sheena Ketovore Life saying hello to everyone. Hello, Sheena. Breadroot is not a keto friendly plant. It's mostly starch and protein, not a lot of fat in it. Sheena's down here in Oklahoma. He's super dust bowl. Have you managed to get any of this rain that we're getting? We just got some out here by Sand Springs earlier tonight. Hopefully, we'll get some tomorrow. Wow, it is humid as heck right now. It's 80. The temperature's gone back up. We're up to 86 degrees again. Wow. Hey, check this out. Got Connie. Haven't seen you in a coon's age. Connie's another fan of Greg Gallison's. Haven't seen you over here. How you doing? John's saying grasshoppers are good. Sir, crickets such a small. I like using them for catfish. You get out there along the riverbanks and you just go out there, grab a grasshopper, put it on the hook, and just toss it into the water. Within seconds, you've got a fish on. It's great to fish whenever the grasshoppers are out like this. There's a heat wave where people have no AC, so the Southerners are confused and asking why they didn't turn on the AC. They don't have it. And really, we should be building our houses so we didn't need AC so much in the first place. But that's going to be just a radical transformation of the way we go about doing architecture. So a lot of places that we build boxes, right? We build boxes with a little roof on them, and then we insulate the boxes and then try to use electricity to keep them cool and other inputs to keep them warm, instead of building them with intentionally from the very beginning to the point where they didn't need all that. We can build that way. It's just we haven't been. It's not fashionable. Like watching Nutrient AG solutions for daily weather forecasts. I don't know where I can find a good weather forecast. I mean, I can go to places like Windy, or I can look at the local weather, but it changes so quickly out here. Regenerative Life, Wayne69 says, afternoon, folks from Southwest Texas. My first jumbo brown quail have hatched 11 out of 30 so far. That is awesome news. That's awesome news. Birds are an adventure. Mary's saying a few years back there was a heat wave in Chicago. So many people died. Yeah. Because if you're up in Chicago, it's just not like everybody's got an air conditioner. Like, what is this? We're not used to all this heat. And even the cold, actually, in Chicago is not all that bad. I was stationed there for a while. And I would go out. I'd go out with a t-shirt on in the winter. And people would look at me funny. Why are you going around in a t-shirt? Oh, this is great. Compared to winter on the prairie, I mean, I know it's technically colder, but it doesn't feel so bad. Having the lakes really helps out a bit. So all the areas surrounding the Great Lakes, even if you're on the more northern sections of my hand disappeared again. Even if you're on the more northern section of the Great Lakes, you've got zone 5 out there. And if you get out of the lake effect area, you drop down to zone 4, or if you're further north, you may even go to zone 3. But just having the mass of that water there, I mean, even though it's frozen, large portions of it get frozen during the winter, it holds and retains heat and releases it slowly compared to the surrounding environment. Vicky says Humboldt Current runs from Japan across the bottom of Alaska and down the left coast. Depends upon what direction you're looking at the planet from. But I know what you mean. All right, now are you planning on doing that before the move or after or both? I still need to do some work on ours. I really want to get that the system set up where we have a solar water heater and then use the hot water with a TEG to produce power, and then we can uh, use a wood burning stove to heat the water and produce electricity that way too. Jan said EU is looking to ban lithium ion batteries getting pushed back, but still, lithium ion batteries are bad for the environment, plain and simple. And they are. But lithium ion phosphate, although that's energy dense batteries, they're rough. There's a lot of this so-called green technology that's not really environmentally friendly at all. Lithium is not good. Cobalt and tantalum is not only not good, it's also lots of slave labor in third world countries. I ran out of punch here in a minute. The thing I do like about thermoelectric generators is Can you tell that my punch is spiked? The thing I like about thermoelectric generators is that the metals that are used to make them are a lot more common and don't require as much nastiness and human misery. That there's other ways to produce energy as long as you can produce heat or even a difference in temperature from one side to the other. Joe's in the house. Finally got some rain in southern Mexico. That's awesome. I know you guys have had better temperatures than we have for the past couple of weeks. It's like I've been looking down there. I was like, really? Really? You guys are in the tropics and you're getting 80s. And we're baking up here. But good. You guys need it. Scroll down and see what's going on here. Mary's saying this one. Look, okay. So as I said before, Mary's been traveling around. As she's traveling, she's looking for seeds. So she's looking for things that grow from Iowa to Texas, but planning on planting around the neighborhood just in case. We've got some interesting stuff growing around the neighborhood. Some of it we imported. All right, you have a good night. Bindweed. What do I do for bindweed? Will your ducks eat it? I don't know. I pull it up. I pull it up and throw it in the duck pen and hope they eat it. And if they do, great. And if they don't, it'll decompose. But pretty much I just have to pull it out every time I see it. Jan saying, cultivate purslane, plantain, and dandelions. Those are all great plants to have. And typically, they reseed themselves quite well. Portulacia, purslane is a good succulent vegetable. Plantain or Plantago minoris or majoris or lanceolate, any of the above are edible and also very good medicinally speaking. Whenever I almost lost I almost lost my middle finger on my left hand. I was 8 years old. Plantago major was one of the herbs that went into the poultice that kept it from getting infected. We were a long ways away from civilization. It was, I think, 4 or 5 days before we made it back to any place where you could go to see a regular doctor. But by that time, the wound had already started to heal up, and there was no infection. So it's, medicinally speaking, a great plant to have. And of course, dandelions are great. Calcium pump. Calcium pump, good for breaking up soil compaction. Plus, you can eat them. Mary's saying, "What is bindweed?" Bindweed is a vining plant that produces small, almost malvasia or mallow-like flowers. The flowers do resemble either hibiscus flower or epomia, the sweet potato flower, but it's not a sweet potato and it's not a hibiscus, and it's just ground cover weed that likes to grow up and strangle things. And we have a lot of it out here on the prairie. We've got a lot of it in our yard too. Sleepless in the Carolinas is saying, any thought on how to use Smilex to get rid of it? Okay, Smilex is an interesting plant. There are some species of Smilex. Smilex, the genus. There are some species that are actually good as an edible plant. You can grow it to eat it. But even your common greenbrier, if you go and you clip it off, you get your clippers and clip it off early in the spring. Those fresh spring tips as they're emerging, and really as long as you have fresh greenery emerging, just clip it off and then steam it like asparagus, and it tastes just like asparagus. The young tender shoots of Smilex are good to eat, even the ones that aren't necessarily grown specifically for that purpose. Yep. I think in what video was it? Natural Forest Layers. I have a video called Natural Forest Layers, which I can put a link out for. Give me a second here. It was either that one or there was another one that we did where we went out on Turkey Mountain, and while we were walking through, I encountered some Smilex and nibbled on it a bit, and I think that's in that video. Let's see here. So there was the Natural Forest Layers video, and then there was another one where we were going out looking for seeds. And I can't remember which one I found them in, so I'll just link them both. Let's see. All right, so I've got So let's see. We've got this one here. That one's the Collecting Wild Seeds video. Only 125 views? Wow. That's not very many. And then we have Natural Forest Layers. This is a great one. Lots of really good footage in this one, by the way. Natural Forest Layers is this video, where I actually go through and I show you all 7 layers of a naturally occurring forest. And I had intended to do that prior to showing what was essentially our grocery road garden. David put up his video on grocery road gardens right about the time I was thinking about showing it off, and I said, nah, David already did it. I'm not going to do it this year. I'll do it again some other time. And I've been just slowly picking up bits and pieces of footage as each one of those layers produces its yield. So I've got some footage shot where we collected flushes of wine cat mushroom. That's the fungal layer. That's one of the 7 layers. And that's strawberries. That's another layer. And then we'll have onions and daylilies. That's the herbaceous layer. And we have understories. Blueberry. Don't know if it shot videos. We collected blueberries, but each one of those layers produces a yield for us, and most of them are perennial. Vicky's saying bindweed is a wild morning glory and call that because they bind themselves to other plants with their 20. There are some that are a wild morning glory, and there's others that I'm not sure they're also called bindweed. It's one of the problems with having common names. But yeah, usually the ones we're calling bindweed here in either uh, the Ozarks, your side, or our side, or down here in the plains in zone 7, are kind of wild morning glory. Sean was saying, Smilax is medicinal and edible. And if you've got an older plant, you can dig the root out and use it to make a pipe. It's pipe wood. The reason it's good for making pipes is it has a certain amount of porosity to it, so it breathes properly. And after you've got it carved out, and you've got your bowl set, you cut the place for your stem, your tobacco or whatever other herb you've got that you're smoking out of it can expel its resins and stuff like that. They'll be absorbed in that wood without clogging it up, so it makes a decent pipe wood. I don't know exactly how old the Smilax has to be before it makes a decent pipe. Several years, maybe a decade or so. Heterodox popped in to say 6. I don't know why. Yep, yeah, that's the problem. That people forget history, right? All the work that we did here, all the work that we did here in Kansas and Oklahoma and portions of Texas and Nebraska after the Dust Bowl, during the Dust Bowl, trying to stop that. They forgot entirely what it was about, and we're like, well, it's been almost 100 years now in the vicinity of, and to cut down the hedgerows and so let's get another row of crop in. But ideally, what we should be doing is having hedgerow, and then having enough room for your combine to come through and make one turn and come back, and then another hedgerow. And we should crop that way. Prevents soil erosion, adds soil organic matter back in, keeps moisture in the soil. That's what we should be doing. And then if you make that hedgerow something that produces an edible crop, maybe it's hazelnuts or chinkapins or plums or blueberries or blackberries, raspberries. You could even stick in pecans and regular full-size chestnuts, pears, peaches, cherries, apples if you're not all the way down in the river bottom. All different kinds of things that you can put into a hedgerow that are productive, that give you another yield, and they provide not only that ability to keep your soil in place and prevent erosion, organic matter to enrich the soil, habitat for your predators, and of course more food. So there's no good reason not to do it other than to say, well, I'm just interested in working and getting this grain crop, this monocrop out, and I'm going to put the inputs in, and I'm going to pull it out, and we're going to mine the soil for its fertility. It's no longer a farming operation at that time; it's a mining operation. And eventually, you mine out the minerals that are available there, and you've got dead soil. Joe saying, I remember seeing a seed catalog from the States selling castor beans. I think they act as repellent to bugs. Castor oil goes into gopher repellent or rodent repellent. I don't know how well it works. I've tried using it. It didn't seem to scare them off. But did seem to work though is whenever I went around and I was digging all those ditches and filling them with wood chips, I think that's done more to get the rodents to leave than anything. And yeah, it's poisonous. John's taking off. Later, John. We're about out of time here, and I don't even know how close to the bottom of comments I'm at. Good Lord. Strange Beings is in the house. Hello. You're very welcome. We got Kenneth Bullington saying, Hola. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Mary saying, "Was my tree turning into something else?" Whenever the tree approaches the end of its life cycle, or whenever we prune it or cut off pieces of it, then that wood can feed mushrooms. Strange Being saying, "I became someone who spoke about potassium nitrate. Potassium nitrate, of course, is fertilizer. It's got other purposes too, but it's fertilizer." Heterodox saying, "Most of his prairie plants are medicinal." Are you growing poppies yet? We're growing poppies for microgreens, of course. Nothing wrong with using those apps. It'll at least help you get in the ballpark, right? Sometimes you have to, look at the best guess that they have and go, okay, can it be that? And then narrow it down to plants in that category. I wouldn't just take the first suggestion that picture this gives you, but it will at least put you close enough in the ballpark that you can narrow it down. But poppies, yeah, poppies make great microgreens. Marshmallows are Althea, yeah, which are in the same family as hibiscus, which includes Rose of Sharon. Hedra likes to say marshmallow died to drought this year. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of water loving plants that weren't doing really great. Technically, the canna that we've got are also a water loving plant. We lost our colocasias, the elephant ears. They didn't make it. I was just playing around with those. I think I'm going to try them again whenever I've got permanent ponds set up, and I'll plant them then. But unless I can keep surface water around for them, I don't think I want to try growing them. They're just too hard to keep alive in dry soil. Chemistry is important for whatever purposes you're using it for. Potassium nitrate is not just fertilizer. It's also medicinal for treating angina, that's chest pains. It's useful for preserving food. If you need to build a rocket to seed clouds to get it to rain over your garden, you might want to have a little bit more purified potassium nitrate, combined with a little bit of sugar, like a little bit of R candy. And of course, you can use it combined with sulfur and charcoal to make a propellant to get rid of garden pests. Probably the list that I have a lot of plants that you're already growing. Strange Bean says, I run a channel under a separate name. I am a rocket science, and I use potassium nitrate for amateur rockets. Yeah. I made R candy and repacked rocket motors from Estes when I was a kid. Even though Estes says, do not repack these motors, we did anyway. And it's a lot of fun. As long as you're well and clear away from the launch pad, whenever you close the circuit and launch it, then you're fine. Although, I did have one of them blow up in my face once. It was fun. But yeah, I used to love building rockets. You're very welcome. It's all science. Mary said we need some red clover. We have some in the meadow over there to the to the north of the house on the other side of the railroad track, or on the other side of the Katy Trail. That used to be a railroad track. It's no longer. Now it's just a bike path. Drops saying purple clover. Hey, cool. If you can grab some seeds and bring it with you whenever you head out this way, you can just sprinkle some across the prairie. Open up the window and just more geothermal houses in this. More earth sheltered houses. If we could, it takes a little bit more of a footprint on the ground to build an earth sheltered house with the same square footage as these box structures. But the savings in insulation, the savings that you get from not having to burn some kind of fuel to either keep it warm in the winter or keep it cool in the summer, I think is so much worth it. Not to mention what happens when you have hurricanes or tornadoes. A geo-sheltered house can survive those so much better. You're already in your storm shelter. It just makes a lot more sense to me. That's kind of cool. So, guy in Yucatan, to cool his home, has a rooftop garden covered with aloe. That's nice. All right, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, we're getting close to that time. I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about. What was I going to talk about? Stop that screen. I was going to talk about this. Where was I at? Chrome tab, this thing. Yeah, I was going to talk about this for a bit, and I might. Let me find my picture here. Okay, so we'll go here and sort of blow this up. So this is water rates for city water, because we have ducks, and ducks take water, and we're putting out probably about 30 gallons of water a day, at least during this part of the year. We might lower it some other parts of the year. Our line, just I got a good look at it whenever they're working on it just a couple weeks ago, is a 3/4 inch line, and they're going to charge us a monthly meter charge of $8.54. So that's $8.54 by 12 months. $102 a year we wind up spending just to have it. Then our rate is $5.39 per 1,000 gallons. Let's see, if we're doing 30 gallons a day times 365 days, that's 10,950 gallons. That's close enough to saying 11,000. So 11 times $5.39. It's $59. So we're spending about $159 a year in water, which doesn't sound like a whole lot. $159 a year in water. That's not too bad, right? We're getting duck eggs out of it. We've got a dozen ducks, 159, let's call it $160 a year in water. Now these guys eat duck food, and right now it's about $25 for a bag, and we go through 1.5 bags a month. So we got $25 a bag times 1.5 bags a month. That's 37.5 times 12 months. $450 plus another $160. $610 a year. That's how much it costs to feed and water the ducks. Each duck is going to produce about 300 eggs in the course of a year. We have 12 ducks. There's that number, 3,600. And we were at $610. Oh, sorry. $610 in feed and water costs. Divide that by 3,600 eggs, potentially. Now, this is after they hit 6 months old. They have to be 6 months old before they start laying. And then for the next 5 years, they're going to get, on the low end, 300 eggs a year. The Khaki Campbell is a really great laying duck. So we're looking at about 17 cents an egg for our feed and water cost. Now, that doesn't sound too bad, but I've got some infrastructure costs as well. I'm going to go ahead and add that in. We spent $1,000 on building the duck hut that we're using, the structure that we're using to close the ducks. I'm not even counting the cost of the poultry netting and the rebar and the PVC pipe and stuff like that to make the mobile fence with. Just the shelter that they're in and the feed. Let's divide that by 3,600 eggs. That brings us up to 44 cents an egg for the first year that they're producing. So our cost per dozen for at least that first year is about $5.30. If we're going to make a profit, we're going to multiply that by 2, and we're looking at maybe $10.73 a dozen. And that's, of course, the reason why whenever we put them up for sale, we're going to be selling about $1 a piece or $10 a dozen. If that makes any sense. It's about the only way that I can ensure that not only do we pay for the cost of building the infrastructure, pay for the cost of feeding the animals, but we can also recuperate losses and potentially have the ability to have more ducks in the future, because they're going to be productive for anywhere from 5 to 7 years. After that 5 to 7 year period, we're going to have to get rid of those ducks and introduce new ducks, which means 6 months of feeding them and housing them and taking care of them with no eggs coming. So you guys are wondering why duck eggs are so expensive. Well, there you go. Their size is about 1.5 times the size of a large chicken egg. So large chicken eggs, I think, are going for about $4 a dozen. So if they're 1.5 times the size of a large chicken egg, they should be $6 just by size alone. But there you have it. Anywho's, let me jump back over here. Mary's saying houses are sold as assets when really they should be sold as liabilities and commodities. Very much not. If you're not doing something with your property, if you have property and you're not doing something with it that's producing for you, maybe, raise a half a dozen ducks, right? Grow some garlic that you can sell. Get $1 a bowl if you're growing decent sized garlic. Hi, Kitty. You can get $1 a bowl for decent sized garlic. Grow crocuses. Crocuses are great. The little anthers that you pluck from out of your crocus, that's called saffron, and it's one of the most expensive spices on the planet. Do something. If you have property and you can grow something that you can turn a profit with, either to reduce the cost of your grocery bill or to make some kind of profit, and that way you're not just paying money for your place to live. Oh, I see how far we are on comments. Way back there, huh? Oh. Yeah, solar water heater, so you can heat your water with the sun whenever you've got the sun, and then you can run the same piping system to your wood-fired, wood-burning water heater. And that way, either way, you've got hot water. And hot water with a TAG is all you need to make electricity. Hot water on one side, cold water on the other. They're saying it's okay when energy is cheap. But right now, energy is cheap. I know it seems crazy because it's getting more and more expensive, but we're in a time period where we do have access to the energy that we can use to do things like build infrastructure. So take advantage of it while you've got it. Elton Butterfield in the house. Chicago people never open their windows. They're so afraid of getting robbed. Oh man, Chicago is a cool town to a certain extent. Chicago is a cool town, but yeah, it's got issues. It's a city. It's got city problems. Yeah, they're great during a certain portion of the year, and then they just stink to high heaven the rest of the year. When you get to Illinois, actually down here on the prairie too, it doesn't really matter. When the winter comes, you're not heating water with them. Jan's saying sodium ion batteries should be coming to the market. Hey. Yes, I am drinking Spike Punch. It is it is one can of Tiki Punch, one can of Sprite, and um, 8 ounces of 90 proof coconut rum, and I feel good. I'm on my last cup. Yeah, too much green technology is green like money, not green like plants. Well, I made this comment. Who was it? You guys are familiar with JP Sears, right? He's got a new channel called JP Reacts, and it was one of those videos we were talking about, the green agenda. Is, if these people really were interested in doing something about carbon dioxide, I mean, really interested, they should be encouraging people to, one, move out of the cities, get away from the population centers, because whenever you're in the population center, your food, your everything has to be trucked in from the outside. That means fuel has to be expended to bring it to you. It has to be produced somewhere else where there aren't the people necessary to use people for the labor. So machines have to do the labor. If machines have to do the labor, then we're using more energy to operate the machines. See how we're going here? You move the people away from the population centers out to where things are produced, and now we can use people for the energy to produce instead of machines, and that means less energy expended in the form of fossil fuel. So if you're worried about cutting down on fossil fuel and worried about emissions and everything else, get the people out of the population centers. Their plan is to get people into population centers, which makes no sense at all if they wanted to reduce the dependence upon fossil fuels. And then, of course, following that, we start planting with agroforestry, multiple layers of forest, nut producing and fruit producing canopy trees, nut producing, fruit producing understory trees, uh, fruit producing vines, herbaceous perennials to provide regular vegetables, edible ground covers, a fungal layer, the entire 9 yards. All of that does more photosynthesis per acre than an acre of corn, which is interesting because you'll look at an acre of corn and go, well, corn photosynthesizes more per acre than any other single crop, right? But a forest, not just trees, but a forest photosynthesizes much more per acre than corn does. So they're trying to tweak the numbers. Say you should grow corn because it's just better for photosynthesis. It processes more carbon. It does more than just about any other monoculture, but we shouldn't be doing monocultures. So having moved the people out of the population centers, having moved the people to the place where their food is being produced, you walk out your front door, your food is here. You don't have to have it shipped in from elsewhere. Not only do you not have to have the food shipped in from elsewhere, we also don't have to have the fertilizer shipped in from elsewhere. Since you're building, hi Kitty, yes I know, it's about that time. I know. Yes. Oh, hey, don't bite me. Since you're building soil organic matter, you're using less water, so you don't have to have the water brought in from elsewhere. All of these things working together will photosynthesize more, remove more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and also reduce dependence on fossil fuels, so reduce the amount of fossil fuels required. But it'll also reduce the amount of money that people need to live. And maybe this is the crux of the entire issue, right? It's because they're not interested in actually protecting the environment at all. They already knew that CO2 wasn't the problem. They're just interested in making money and controlling people. But if you move people out of the population centers and allow them to produce their own food, they become more independent. They don't want that. Anyways, Mary says I'll talk more when I'm drunk. Yes, I will. Let me tell you about the universe. Saltwater batteries have a saltwater batteries have a max draw of 18 amps. It's still not bad. Depends upon how much space that you need for them, right? These these sealed lead acid batteries that we're using for building our solar system are these guys are 22 amp hours. Like, and my green screen is being weird. So it's about that wide and about that tall. I think. So there's a sealed lead acid battery. That's 22 amp hours. Jasper says, yes, well, you better use small scale wind turbine, small scale thermal solar. Yeah, well, yeah, thermal, small scale thermal setup where you can get your heat from the sun, or you can get your heat from fossil fuel, or if you've got there are some places where you've got enough heat being generated by magma pockets not too far under the surface of the ground, not too far down in the crust, where you could do some limited geothermal for your source of heat too. Um, Instead of cobalt and tantalum and child labor to make a solar panel, you can make a Telluride thermoelectric generator circuit, and it's more environmentally friendly. Doesn't wear out as quickly, and is more flexible as far as where you're going to get the energy from. But as far as the wind turbines go, if we were just using wind power for pumping water, I think that would be better than trying to use wind power to generate electricity. Instead of making electricity and having pumps to move water, we could have wind power to move water. I mean, do it really old school. I'm thinking about changing up our aerators for our aquatic system, and instead of having a pump that pushes the water up, instead we just have rotational energy to operate a water wheel to aerate. That way, it doesn't matter; they won't get clogged. So one of the problems I'm having is clogging filters and having to change out filters on a regular basis. It's a pain in my backside, and I like things simple. Purslane, there might be a perennial purslane, but most of the edible portulatia is an annual, but it reseeds readily. Yeah, Purslane vitulagus. I'll have to look it up. But it falls in the same category as amaranthus. Some of these annual plants, they just reseed so readily that they may as well be perennial. All right, going back to how much space the saltwater, so they take up too much space. So you can use them if space is not an issue. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I'm kind of like I'm happy with the lead acid batteries. They take up more space than lithium iron phosphate, but I don't need them to be mobile. They're stationary. If they're stationary, then it doesn't matter. As long as I've got enough space to house the batteries, I can put them, maybe under the floorboards or in, well, maybe not in the attic. They're heavy, but I can store them someplace where that's not an issue. I'm not needing them to power a vehicle going down the road. So maybe saltwater's another thing I could look into. Heterodox is saying purslane is perennial, doesn't pop until late July. There are different varieties. Some are perennial, some are annual. Um, the one that we typically think of as edible purslane is an annual. Mary saying so when stick a regular base. Well, what are you calling regular base? Lithium iron phosphate. Um, so the thing that powers your smartphone is a lithium ion phosphate battery. That's a lightweight, more lightweight battery and less space intensive. But that's because it's supposed to be used in a portable application. If we're looking at battery backups for houses, for farms, and stuff like that, then we don't need to have something that's lighter weight or not as bulky. We can have big, bulky, and heavy batteries because it doesn't matter. They don't have to move. It's one of the reasons why whenever people are going out and buying these household generators, the emergency generator, and it's got a lithium ion phosphate battery, it's like, why are you doing this? Are you planning on picking it up and moving it with you or something, or are you planning on using it to keep your freezer running so your meat doesn't spoil? If you're planning on using it to keep your freezer running so your meat doesn't spoil, it doesn't need a lithium ion phosphate battery. You don't need to be spending $2,000 for this. I think it's more than $2,000 for this 1.8 kilowatt hour battery backup with a 100-watt panel that's not going to charge it up over the course of one day. 100-watt panel over the course of the day, maybe charge 300 watts. So you'd need 6 of those to charge up the lithium ion phosphate battery up. You guys know the company I'm talking about, right? Meanwhile, a 100-watt panel costs you about $90, and one of these little 22 amp hour batteries costs about $50, and charge control is about $15. Pick up an inverter for maybe $40 or $50, and you're looking at a fraction of the cost to get the same kind of effect. If you just need something to keep your freezer from going dead during a time with no power, it's not that expensive. Drops saying, got tons of wild morning glory, can't feed it to the chickens. It makes them high. Really? I know the ducks like to munch on it. I don't know if it gets them high or not. Let's see. Sastro says, the problem with hedgerows is that they need maintenance and they shade the corn and the beans. Well, let's see. If you've got a 3 to 6 foot space on the edge of your corn or wheat or barley or whatever it is patch, I'm presuming that if we're going to do hedgerow in combination with an alley crop, what we're probably going to want is that kind of grain production, corn or wheat or barley or millet or whatever it is. You're probably going to have about 6 foot of buffer in between where your grain crop is, and then on the other side another 6 foot, and then you're going to have hedgerow. So you have that area, and maybe the end 2 foot or so is going to wind up having a little bit of a shade issue, maybe tops. But realistically speaking, during that time of day that the sun is passing over your grain crop, if you're doing a say a north to south hedgerow, then you're going to have shade until about 10 o'clock, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's about 6 hours, and then some shade on down. That's if we're looking at maybe 20-foot tall hedgerows. So, I mean, yeah, you're gonna want to keep them from getting too high. But if you're getting a harvest out of those, and if you're growing things like chinkapin that's only going to get maybe 20 foot high in the first place, it's not that big a deal. What if you're growing hazelnut, chinkapin, and cherry trees? I've got cherry trees that only get to be about 18 foot tall. Those aren't going to be a problem. You're going to get somewhere between 6 and 8 hours of sunlight on your crop space, especially if you've got that 6 foot pad, right, where you've got maybe a ground cover on the outer 6 foot. So no, it's not the kind of problem that they're thinking. And if the end result is you never have to buy fertilizer, you never have to buy pesticide, if you don't have to worry about drought as much, then yeah, it's the short-sighted people. And yeah, hedgerows are edges. Yeah, in permaculture terms, anytime you've got an edge where you're transitioning from one kind of climate or one kind of ecology to another kind of ecology, you have more energy exchange between whatever is living there. More energy exchange means more energy harnessed. More energy harnessed in agricultural terms means more food, more calories, more good stuff for us. Whether that's whether we're making fibers or whether we're making caloric content food or whether we're making mineral content food. Hi, Katie. Stuff just for the fun of it because we like it. It doesn't matter what it is. So maybe a good okay. What is it they're doing at the Chinampas in Mexico City? I think it's like 40 foot between canals is 40 foot. So if I'm doing 1 foot in between corn, now I have 6 feet on this side, 6 feet on that side. That's total of 12 foot. And then we're going to have another 6 foot, another 6 foot, maybe an 8 foot, and 8 foot. 16 plus 12 is 28 foot. So I have 28 foot. Sorry, my hands are just moving. We're going to have 28 foot in between the ground cover and the hedgerow on either side. And then we'll have what's left for the rest of 40. 28, 29, 30, 12 foot. So you don't need that big of a tractor. You do 12 foot of a grain, and then make one pass with your combine. Or if you're using like a mini compact, you can do two passes, so one up and one back, to get your grain crop out. And then you've got a productive hedge, and then canal on the outside, and then productive hedge, canal on the outside. And you just repeat that over and over and over again. And then you get your fish. You've got that segment with the ground cover where you can run a grazing animal through, like sheep, goats, what have you. Your grain crop, whatever comes out of your hedge, that's fruits and nuts and berries and everything else. And it's all right there. And doesn't require a lot of heavy and expensive machinery to operate. So instead of what we've been doing, where we make the bigger and bigger machines with more and more energy input and more expense, we can do things smaller and bring people out to the point where the people are doing most of the work in growing and harvesting food, instead of having them working jobs that they hate in cities where they're stacked on top of each other like rats in cages. And I think we'll all be a lot healthier for it. Let's see. Elotes are related to bindweed. It's also binding plant. Cleans other vines with their orange trees. I'm going to have to just go look some of this stuff up, Joe. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. Man, there's a lot of stuff that grows in the tropics that I don't know. Morning Glory is going to come over and take over. Sycamore Knox in the house. Showed up late. They'll try to catch the next stream. And then Talakina and Bill Johnson sue bioreactor compost will have to deal with jumping worms. It's a jumping worm. Well, Morning Glory, Epomia is found all over the Americas. If you don't have them in Illinois, count yourself fortunate. They're tough little boogers. How to Gardens in the house. Hi, I'm getting ready to call it a night. Railroad tracks also known as berms or levees. Well, they effectively are, aren't they? that the name for them? Amanthus argestis. Yeah, I mean, North America didn't have any earthworms. That's what we're told. I don't know if it's true. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. We're talking about drought, what people are doing about drought, different methods of farming, um, preserving soil, organic matter, getting people out of the cities and more independent, all kinds of fun stuff. They're saying we're mad about the natural gas price, which we don't use. There's making an election. Oh man, yeah. There's okay. So your synthetic fertilizer production, urea production, which goes into diesel exhaust fluid as well as urea fertilizers, ammonia for fertilizers. That's all synthesized out of natural gas, CH4, natural gas or methane. Um, it's ironic that the world is having a severe shortage of essentially methane or natural gas, the products that are produced by natural gas, following a decade ago, whenever the world's largest deposits of natural gas were effectively cut off. That would be North Africa. They call it the Arab Spring, if you recall. So Syria, Libya, Tunisia, these countries are right there bordering on Monaco or Monaco. Monaco. Oh, I've eaten too many figs. Bordering on Monaco, these North African countries have the largest natural gas deposits in the world, and if they've been invested in with a robust and growing economy, which the leaders there were attempting to develop, then they would be very easily able to produce the diesel exhaust fluid and urea fertilizer and everything else that we needed during this particular time when everybody seems to be coming up short on it. But somebody saw fit to destabilize these countries and turn them into third world cesspits. I guess they were afraid of the competition. It's very sad, but it's a created problem. It's a problem that we don't need to be facing, but we are because we have bad leadership. Shouldn't have had leadership in the first place. People need to learn how to lead themselves. Okay. Joe's saying 12 ducks and no drakes. Yeah, I know. I thought I might have 2 drakes early on, but no, it's 12 hens. If I want fertilized eggs, I'm going to have to go buy a drake or 2, or get rid of some ducks and buy a drake maybe. Going back to talking about the expenditures, $1,000 to set up the duck hut. It was like 500 and something for the shed itself, and then a little bit more on lumber and cement blocks and OSB and stuff like that stuff. The floor, all that stuff is like totally altogether $1,000 to set up the enclosure that they're in to keep the critters from getting them at night, plus the feed, plus everything else that goes into it. So if you don't calculate that stuff and you go, well, a chicken egg is $4 is $4 a dozen. The duck egg is 1.5 times the size of a chicken egg. Let's sell the duck egg at $6 a dozen. Then the break even point would be somewhere between 2 and 3 years in selling the duck eggs. But that's assuming that all the ducks keep on surviving, and those ducks are about $14 a piece for the hen. If I get it from Metzger's, and then I've got 6 months of feeding them on top of it. So that's the reason we have to charge more for duck eggs. I was saying that's a cheap. What we've got here is a cheap. Yeah, they get us. They get us in other ways though. They get us in other ways. We've got the standard fee that we have just to have the meter up and running, and then they're charging us for wastewater, even though we're using a septic tank system. So they're charging us for wastewater disposal coming off of the property, even though we're processing it all ourselves. We're processing our own wastewater. and we're managing our own rainwater runoff. We try not to let any water leave the property if we can help it. It winds up whenever it falls on the when it falls on the driveways, it goes down the street. But otherwise, we hold on to it. It would be a very rare day that we have rain that falls anywhere other than on the driveway, that it doesn't sink into the soil. Then we hold on to it. Yeah, drakes don't lay eggs. The only thing the drakes do is fertilize eggs. So if we're going to be making more ducks, we need drakes. If you're not making more ducks, you don't need the drakes. The hens will lay. And this is true for chickens too. The chickens will lay. Chicken hens will lay eggs without needing a rooster. But if you want more chickens, you have to have the rooster. It's kind of basic biology. Probably get canceled for saying that. The egg, the animal that hatched out of it was a duck. Mary, Mary's still talking about this. She's seen call ducks and she thinks they're cute. They're still birds, Mary. They're still birds. They'll still poo everywhere. Even if they're cute and friendly and gregarious and all that stuff, they still poo everywhere. Yeah, you got that right. I mean, oh man. When I went out to Atwoods and got this lovely shirt, when I went to Atwoods earlier today, I thought, okay, we're gonna get in there. I'm gonna get some more. I'm gonna get some more totes. We got these big circular um, feed totes, and get some more totes. Gonna buy up a bunch of duck feed and just go ahead and get 4 or 5 months ahead of time, maybe more if I can get it. And I got in there and they didn't have lids for the totes, so they had a few totes, but they didn't have lids for them. So I just had to get enough duck feed to fill up the totes that I've got, and hopefully maybe they'll have more later. Other than that, if we get to a point where they don't have it, then I'll have to get rid of some ducks. That's about the way it works. I would have a drake, but the first two we got were straight run, and they just turned out to be hens. Yes, they're noisy. Maybe I shouldn't be talking because I haven't had the experience yet. But yeah, from what I've heard, if you've got drakes with your hens, they quiet down a bit. But if it's just hens, they're noisy. They're not too noisy though. They're not as noisy as the neighbor's rooster. Joe's saying, I want to replant a prickly pear hedge with the kind that produces sweet fruit as well as the kind that produces sour fruit. I don't know which ones I've got. I've got some prickly pears growing, and I have not tasted the fruit yet, so I don't know what I have. We're just going to have to wait and find out. I hope they're not sour. If they are, then I can just harvest the seeds and use them as number 4 buckshot. Interestingly enough, I discovered that the kind of flavor that you have from a prickly pear has a similar heat to it that you get from the seed of a papaya. If you ever bite into a papaya seed, it has that kind of like a shepherd's purse or nasturtium type flavor, a little bit peppery. Those are kind of interesting. But I'm not exactly sure which ones I've got. I don't know if they're more of like that slightly spicy or peppery flavor or more sweet. Just gonna have to wait and see what kind of tunas they make. Yep. No, chickens are the same way. I mean, you try to train them to lay in one spot, but they're going to wind up laying where they want to. So Carp's saying my hay costs went up 50% from last year. That's huge. That's huge. I mean, especially if you're trying to sell meat on margin, having your input cost 50% more. It's just a gamble. Do you keep your flock? Do you keep your herd? Buy the extra, and then hope that you can get a good enough price whenever you go to market, or do you just cut your losses and liquidate the herd? Safe bet is cut your losses, right? And then you're going to be spending a year or two rebuilding. But what can you do? If you've got deep pockets, maybe you can buy in and then ride it out. Eric's saying he had 2 acres, couldn't sell without a permit. Isn't that crazy? You need a permit to eggs were good too. Nice. Biggest city should be a small town. South Jersey is one small town. drive 5 miles, another small town. Drive 5 miles, another small town. Not even at the Roman Empire warring period. Yeah, we can't grow coyotes here. Coyotes. We can't grow them. It's too. No, no. They don't show. They don't even show up in the supermarkets. No luck with malanga. No. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the water, you're not going to be able to grow malanga. Yeah, Mary is a dog person. I like cats because they don't need me. So if they happen to like me, then it's cool. Dogs, they just like people. It's annoying. Nobody likes them. That's why they tell her, "Shut up, nobody likes you." Elton's going to bed. I need to go to bed too. How much more comments do we have here? Getting sleepy? Yeah, me too. I'm out of punch too. So that's not good. Well, that's interesting. Just as yesterday, heard on the news the four hottest cities on Earth: one in Iran, one in Afghanistan, one in Pakistan. Wow, that's all in more or less the same portion of the world. And then Hermosillo, Sonora, south of the Arizona border. That's also one of the hottest cities in here. So that is little. Is it the center of the Sonora state between Nogales and the port of Guaymas? I like Sonoran cooking, incidentally. Get me some beef, slow roasted in an adobe oven on a tortilla with some peppers and some onions, some garlic, cebolla. All right. Wait, you're not familiar with all three of them? No, I'm not. This that one plant that has that one name. Yeah. I can't remember everything. No. All right. Can we get a cool boy duck? I don't know. It depends. If we're going to try to true breed, then it's going to have to be another khaki Campbell. If we're just going to get one so that we have a boy duck, then it doesn't really matter which one. But if we're trying to breed to replace the flock, because 5 years in, I want to butcher the hens at 5 years. Between 5 and 7 years, I want to butcher them and then replace them with new ones, so they stay at peak laying. Yeah, Muscovies are pretty quiet, but Muscovies eat everything. I mean, everything. All right, this old Drake has to go through this tonight, Ken. Let me see here. Oh, we're getting close to the bottom. Vicky says here, get up and go, done, up and left. Yeah, me too. I'm getting tired. We're down here at the bottom. Heather, I said Bangkok's one of the hottest cities. I think. I don't know. When I was in Olongapo, it was pretty hot that particular year. That's in the Philippines, but probably had more to do with the power station having issues than anything. Nobody's AC was working. The ice machines weren't working. The San Miguel was piling up on the pallets in the back behind the bars and getting all rusted out. They really needed the limes then. But I didn't stop over in Bangkok. We went to Pattaya Beach in Thailand instead. Pattaya is a pretty cool place. Mary's using duct tape. We could say, Mary, I'm probably old enough to be your mom. Probably. Anyway, guys, we've been here for 2 hours. Oh, shoot. I almost forgot. So I was talking about trying out a tomato. I've got this guy right here. This is the first of the new cherry tomatoes that we're growing, and I'm going to go ahead and taste it and save some seeds from it. I got a little container for it. Almost forgot. I was going to try this thing out. So this is a Burpee's Sweeties cherry tomato, and these guys like to grow in clusters, usually like 5 or 6, sometimes more in a cluster. So you could presumably pick the entire cluster off or cut it off and allow those to vine ripen, and you have a cluster of tomatoes, which is nice. And I like cherry tomatoes because you give them a cut in half like so, and then you can just put them in your food dehydrator, and you've got tomatoes for years. If they wind up having issues like bugs get to them, if you have leaf foot bugs or those stink bugs that get to them, then you only wind up losing the one fruit instead of losing a large, half pound or so. But these are just multiple small fruits. So if one of them gets ruined, it's not that big a deal. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull the seeds out. I'm not going to eat the seeds. I'm going to put them in the water like so. And I'll let them ferment so the gel coat that's on the outside of the seed gets fermented off, and then we'll dry them, and they'll be ready to plant next year. And this is how we save seeds for tomatoes. I'm just dropping them down into that water there. Well, apparently my green screen is not going to cooperate with me. All right, so I'll just go ahead and pull the seeds out and drop them in the water. Let them ferment in the water, and sometime, probably 2 weeks from now, I'll go ahead and drain that water off, put them on a paper towel, and I'll have saved the seeds for this sweet tomato or sweet cherry tomato. So yeah, it's called Sweeties. Okay. Even without salt, it's not bad. I think it's not bad at all. They're very juicy, mildly acidic, good tomato flavor. These are going to dehydrate and make really good stewing tomatoes or chili tomatoes. A little bit of salt on it. Probably too much salt on it. Mmm. That's really good. Had a nice sweet aftertaste. So slightly more acidic than sweet, but yeah, pretty good. I would grow them again. So save those seeds. Save those seeds. Let them ferment for a week or two, and then we'll preserve them, and we'll have tomato seeds for next year. It's a really good vining tomato. Indeterminate vining tomato. Now let's see. Compare it to like a Chadwick. The Chadwick has a much thicker skin. So Mary is saying, "What is about those vine tomatoes you grew on Johnson grass the year that I hurt my foot?" Those were I think a sweet 100s, and I might try to germinate some of those seeds again. Those seeds are probably about 10 years old, maybe a little bit older. I could try to germinate some. I tried to grow some of these Mexican cherry tomatoes, and none of them took. It was just too damp early on in the spring, and they all died off. Got them to germinate, but they didn't take. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you tonight. As always, hope you found the video informative or entertaining. Maybe a little bit of both. If you did, you know what to do. I'll catch you next time. And until then, get out there and get growing. I am going to go fix this problem. Good night, everybody.